Thanks for the introduction and the invite to share Roeselare's story with all of you. I hope to inspire you with two concrete examples of our governance model with a focus on spatial development and urban planning. I will present our integrated approach to those projects and how we try to get early stage involvement in the design process. I will introduce two key structures. One we set up as an internal initiative, the so-called Urban Lab. It's a bit similar to the City Atelier in Bruges. And the second one is our external quality advisory board. Just a brief introduction, so you can get a better idea of the scale of the city of Roeselare. Roeselare is situated in the heart of West Flanders, in between, close to Bruges actually, and it has approximately 66,000 inhabitants. As a city, we face four major challenges in balancing the growth of the city and keeping the city livable. You will probably recognize those challenges. The first one is a demographic challenge. We are quite affordable for housing, so we attract a lot of residents, which leads to a high development rate for the moment. Developments that are mostly monofunctional, focusing solely on housing apartments and with little added value for the city or the local neighborhoods. A part of that comes to the specific spatial plan we have in Roeselare. It's a framework that almost allows development everywhere in the city. So it's a big problem. It was the drive for the growth of the city in the past years, but now it poses us a lot of limitations. And next to that, the climate challenge. The urban heat island effect is very big in Roeselare. We don't have canals or water like Bruges has. So with a high development rate, the heat island only gets bigger and bigger. From those four challenges, we made a reflection from the city and had a debate on how can we as a city step up and integrate different governance models to maybe deal with those challenges. In what follows, I will try to just make a small reflection to the European Bauhaus. It's funny because we never approached it in that way, but when I was making this presentation, it shows that the three principles that are guiding together sustainable, beautiful, we all implement them in the structures we had set up. The first one is the Urban Lab. It facilitates interdisciplinary dialogue among colleagues from different city departments and policy areas. In this dialogue, the aspect beautiful is not primary on the agenda. The discussion focused mostly on ambitions and quality aspects than specific designs. So that's the difference with the City Atelier, as I heard it from Lise, is that there's no preparation in our Urban Lab. Everyone just shows up to the table and it's a discussion of 1.5 hours where we just reflect on a case. Myself, I am an urban developer in the city. Don't get it wrong, as an urban developer, I do not develop. I act as a facilitator. I create links between internal city services and external stakeholders, with the ambition and the goal to just have a balanced and well-supported urban vision and a balanced city in the end. What struck me was that there's a big challenge is that even though we work in this urban lab together, in the beginning we still gave fragmented advice across the policy areas. So we worked integrated, but we reflected not integrated to key stakeholders in the city. What helped me a lot was this scheme from the city of Utrecht. It's a development scheme that shows you that you have to, when you think about housing or developing a city, you have to consider a lot of policy areas. It's not only creating housing that will make a livable city, but you also have to reflect and think about infrastructure, green spaces, schools, energy supply. Everything must be integrated. So talking about urban development is much more than talking about housing. I think that's something we integrated into the different city departments now 3-4 years ago. It sounds logic when you see this code, but it's something you have to keep putting attention on for an integrated approach. So the remarkable fact was that, sorry, too fast, is that as I said, we just didn't have an integrated advice to external people, and that's something we worked on with the city, with our urban lab. So the lab formulates a coordinated integrated advice on projects with significant impact, ensuring that applicants receive clear guidance on making well-informed decisions. This is really important. So we want to be as early in a stage as possible, so we can also say to real estate developers, what you're aiming for is really not, this is not the place to do that. You better step out of this project. And our goal is to avoid monofunctional, isolated developments and instead promote a more diverse city. How does the Urban Lab work? First of all, is that we try to set the right team for the specific cases. So we have people from different city departments present. Second part is that the input is really important. So we have a scope clarified in the beginning, and we have an objective presentation. That means that there's always one person in the city department that is responsible for the case and also presents it to the rest of the group. The most important part is the debate and discussion. So every policy advisor provides input based on his specific area of expertise and his or specific policy team. And this results in an integrated advice that we deliver at the end of those sessions. We have a group of people that were always invited for our urban lab. It's myself, that's our climate policy officer, that's our mobility policy officer, that's the policy officer responsible for green services, and also the spatial planner of the city is always present. It shows you that mobility and climate, as we've seen in the previous presentations, are really key people in the city government. And for specific cases, we just add people to the group. It can be people from the strategic department, it can be policy officers from the more human departments as youth, sport, or people working in the neighborhood itself. This is the output of the Urban Lab. So it's a combination of text, references to policy plans, and sometimes also illustrative images or references that we really think that are suitable for the case we speak of. This is the part, the second part is about an external approach. So to just sum up the internal approach, it's important that we come as early as possible in the stage of when developers or owners or architects are thinking about developing a specific site. The external approach comes in place a little bit later. So it only starts when there's already a plan where we can debate or discuss on. Our external quality advisory board supports us, inspires us, and also advises the city, but also developers on spatial quality. So that means that the aspect of beautiful of the new European Bauhaus is also in place from now on. How does this work? For each project, we have allocated a 1-hour session, or longer if needed, for significant cases. We have 4 stakeholders always present at the table. Obviously, the quality advisory board itself, myself as the organizer and also responsible for the report after the meeting. The involved city services are represented, and also the designer and or property owner, real estate developer are also welcome at the table. So our board consists of 4 experts from different backgrounds who collectively reflect on projects from their different perspectives. We chose to have 4 experts from 4 specific teams. So we have an expert on public space, we have an expert on architecture, an expert on heritage, and an expert on urban development. This is a quote from the president of the Quality Advisory Panel, and that's what he said, is that the Quality Advisory Panel is a forum for open discussion and debate. It looks at challenges with a broad perspective and offers practical tips to improve projects. How does it work? As said, we provide 1 hour per case, and the first 5 to 10 minutes is a bit of context setting, is where we, as a policy officer, introduce the case to the 4 experts. At that moment, the developer, the designer, or the real estate developer are not present yet in the meeting. It's just setting the context for our 4 members. From then on, the architect or the designer gets 20 minutes to present his project, focusing on important aspects that are important for the debate later on. And after those 20 minutes, there's room for discussion and debate. It's a bit about a half an hour where just there's the debate and the communication between the developers, architects, and the 4 experts. In the end, we make up an advice. It's sent 2 weeks after the meeting, and it's a bit of a comprehensive advisory report that we send to the architects and the developers. This report is mostly a direct summary of the discussion, so there should be no surprises for everyone that was present. Some facts and figures. We have really different cases that are coming to the table. It can go from public spaces to real only heritage projects, from schools to offices, from residential development to small housing developments. It's a monthly meeting. It's a half a day that we sit together with the 4 experts, and we have a maximum of 3 projects each meeting each time. We've had 50 meetings so far, and we had 58 different projects that were on the agenda, which resulted in almost 90 advices. So if you count quickly, you can see that most projects come a second time to the Quality Advisory Board. Even a third time is possible if needed. What we also do is that for projects that have a public part of it, is that we also suggest a workshop with a delegation of the Quality Advisory Board. So not the 4 experts, but mostly 2 experts are present. And we use it for cases where we feel that there is a real need to take a step back and to focus on setting ambitions and defining early design principles straight, and not focusing too much on already a real plan with architecture, landscape architecture. It's really setting a step. What are the values of our Quality Advisory Panel or board is that, as said also in the quote from the president, it's a clear and transparent communication. So we focus on a dialogue where both developer and designers are needed, along with the civil servants. So what's really important is we do not accept only the architect at the table. The developer has to be there also, the real estate developer, because we find it really important that he also hears what the Quality Advisory Board says, because otherwise we don't know what the designer tells them afterwards. It's also important to have a detailed report to ensure clarity, but also accountability. So sometimes the Quality Advisory Board gives a task to the city itself also, saying that it's unclear for them what the ambition of the city itself is for that specific site. So they give us also some homework from time to time. And evaluations, we've been working with that board for 4 years now, so that this approach is really successful, and it also improves the overall quality of developments. This is a small example where you see on the left what was presented for the Quality Advisory Board. One building ignoring context, just full of maximalization, a lot of housing, a lot of apartments. And after a meeting, it became more connected to the neighborhood, more focused on green, and a project that is much more integrated. Some conclusions. We have 3 steps. We have the first step is always our urban lab, where we set the outlines of the conditions and ambitions. The second part, when the project gets evolved and when there's a plan on the table, our quality advisory panel comes into play, which has an open debate and focuses on increasing the quality of the project itself. And only in the third phase, the political decision is made. So in the first 2 steps, there's never an alderman or a major present. It's always one direction, city department to developers and architects. But in the end, it's the decision is made by the political people. To end up, I have some reflections. What really is important in those kind of settings is that you speak the same language. Often we see that a real estate developer or an owner doesn't understand what the quality board is saying. So we always ask them, really, do you understand it? We always focus on the state setting a step back and being sure that everyone speaks the same language. There's also a danger, I think, that is in a later phase of a project, the costs come into play, and that means sometimes a really good project is compromised in a later stage because of cost constraints. An important lesson for me is, and I always tell it to my colleagues, is that as a city, you are really the driving force behind change, and you're a catalyst for development. So really take on that role in an active way, embrace it, and help out where you can to really make sure that the city keeps on developing and keeps growing. It needs a continuous effort to keep these processes alive. And what sometimes is a problem in those debates is that as a city you focus too less or not at all on the economic aspect of a development. So also try to have attention for that economic aspect of developments. Just to show you one piece of example, it's the last slide, I think, is practice what you preach. On the left, this was a parking lot still in the beginning of January last year, owned by the city, and the first plans for us as a city were just to sell it again and let big city developers build housing programs, offices, shops, retail. And we went to the mayor and the alderman and said, this is probably not the way to go. We have a heat island effect. We have a lot of developments in the city. Why not show as a city the example? And on the image on the right, you see we convinced the political responsibles to just make it a big city park of 10,000 square meters out of it. So also show some what you want to do, show it as a city. Thank you for your attention. I hope it brought you some inspiration.